Okay, let's focus now on 5 under-the-radar stories to follow on Championship Sunday, because we've talked about the battle for the title, top 4, relegation scrap, but there's a lot going on across the league, maybe that we haven't talked about that much in the last few weeks. So I want to focus on the Golden Boot. Who's going to win it, Mohamed Salah or Heung-min Son? Because Salah's on 22 goals, Son's on 21. Andy, I'm coming to you first. Son does have an advantage here because he's fit ahead of the Norwich game. Salah's struggling with a knock, so he may not play. So I think 2 goals for Son, and he pretty much wraps this up, right? So who are you tipping for the Golden Boot?
I think it'll be Mohamed Salah. I think he'll hold on to it because, especially if Harry Kane is potentially going to be unavailable through the illness that he's dealing with early in the week, that's where a lot of Son's chances come from. And so I question whether or not he's going to have the same opportunity to run at defenders in space, get one-on-one, cut inside to the right the way that he likes to do, or to lead those counterattacks with Harry kind of dropping in, playing almost more as a playmaker in number 10 and spraying those balls into the channels for him to run onto. So if Kane is out, I think, obviously that's where a lot of Son's production comes from, with the Premier League record of assists between the two that they've had throughout their time together at Tottenham, and just the way that this team is playing under Conte. Now, maybe they get a couple of penalties. It would have been nice maybe if Harry would have said, "Hey, Sonny, here, I know you're right there. I've won it before. I've won, I think, 3 times before. So, I don't need the goals." But of course, he's not going to do that. Spurs needed the points to get over the line for top 4. But it does make you wonder if Kane had been a little bit more on song early in the season. However you feel about that, whether you feel that was, self-inflicted or not, as I do, where Son could be this season, because once Kane got back up to speed with the rest of the team, once Conte came in, once the ideas started to take hold, they really have, and we'll throw Kulishevsky in there as well. That trio up top has just been absolutely brilliant to watch.
Yeah, I'm going with Son. I think he's just been in such fine form recently. I could see him bagging a hat-trick at Norwich on the fight. No disrespect to Norwich, but that is the kind of team you want to be playing against if you're going for the Golden Boot. The thing that might hurt him is that, say, if Tottenham are only 1 or 2-0 up, they may not throw caution to the wind that much in that game. They might just kind of settle for that and just sit in the back 5 and defend. And they obviously only really need a draw with the goal difference situation of Arsenal to secure Champions League. So that might hurt him, but I can see Son coming out and scoring a few early. And I cannot see Liverpool risking Mohamed Salah for more than 15 or 20 minutes if he is that bad with the injury ahead of the Champions League final. But Nick, what's your take on this? I mean, are you going for Harry Kane to score? What does he need? 6 or 7 goals to overtake them both on the final day?
Just looking for about 20 goals from Callum Wilson. No, I think that Salah, I'm going to go with him because, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, the assist tiebreaker, right? So if Son scores 1, assists are the tiebreaker. And I just think we forget how hard it is to score goals in the Premier League. So I know it's easy to look at Norwich and say 2 goals, but braces are hard to come by. So I'm going to guess they finish level on goals. I just think Mohamed Salah has those assists in his back pocket, and that'll swing it.
Okay, well, let's focus now on another under-the-radar story. The battle for merit payments, basically money, prize money. 10th spot to 14th spot is separated by just 3 points. I was looking at this. And each spot you finish higher in the Premier League, you gain an extra $2.75 million in prize money or merit payments. So there's a swing there potentially, if my math is correct, which usually it's a bit suspect, over $10 million there, depending on your result on the final day of the season for those teams in the middle of the table. Andy, that is huge, right, in terms of if you're a Brentford or even Brighton in the middle of the table there, or even a Crystal Palace. So there's a lot to play for in the middle of the table, even though it might look like, oh, they're on the beach, they don't have anything to play for, not a care in the world. Teams care about this money because that is maybe a player or two or salaries for a couple of players for a few seasons. So this is big bucks that these teams are playing for late in the season.
Yeah, there's 2 spots in the top half still available, 5 teams that could finish in either one of them. So, in terms of being able to say that you're a top half Premier League team, imagine Brentford coming up first ever season in the Premier League, not been in the top flight in, at this point, I forget, 70 some years. And then you're just instantly, suddenly in the top half for a finish. Obviously, the money is important, what the transfer plans are going to be for some of these clubs in the summer coming up. And these are always clubs that are finishing mid-table, whether it's somebody that's fallen down from the top 6 or so and they're just having a really poor season, or it's somebody who's overperforming, that little bit of extra, the financial resources that you're able to garner on the last day of the season can make a difference. I think when you're going and you're rebuilding the squad in the summer. And I think it also kind of, it sets up what the expectations, what the objectives, the targets are going to be for next season as well. Because and I'll just use Brentford as an example again, because I think they're the most interesting maybe of that entire group there. You finish 14th in your first season. And it looks like, oh, okay, you had a pretty good season. But the fact is they're on 46 points already. It's an incredible point tally for a club the size of Brentford, the resources that they have, first season up into the Premier League. And if they could push up and finish 10th this weekend, I think Thomas Frank should be a shoe-in for manager of the year. And I think we should be looking at Brentford and starting to talk about how can they consolidate themselves now in the Premier League versus how do they stay another season in the Premier League next year. I think it's the optics of it, right? If you're a top 10 team, then in the summer, guys will want to come to you. You'll see a lot more success in the transfer window of, oh, they didn't just finish in the bottom half of the Premier League. They're a top 10 team pushing for European qualification next season, which could be Brighton, it could be Brentford, could be Newcastle, Nick, as well, of course. And I think that really does help, like you said, Andy, with the momentum and the sort of positive vibes around the teams. And I want to point towards a really good post that Andy has up on Pro Soccer Talk and NBCSports.com. What's to play for in the final weekend of the Premier League season? That details everything that's on the line, up and down the table, not just the title, top 4 relegation, but in that middle pack as well. Who's playing who, how many points they have. So head over to PST and check that out, because that is a one-stop shop for everything you need explaining in the final round of games in this crazy, crazy season. Nick Mendola, I want to talk to you about Man United, because they have kind of what I'd say is an awkward audition in front of the new manager, Erik ten Hag. He's going to be at Crystal Palace on the final day of the season. By all accounts, he hasn't really met anybody at Manchester United. I think he's been WhatsApping with Ralph Rangnick. I'm sure a lot of emojis and whatnot going back and forth between those two. That's going to be a bit weird, but also I think very enlightening to see these Man United players. Maybe if they raise the levels a little. I mean, he's been watching them for a few months now, of course, with the agreement and all negotiations before that. So this shouldn't really impact their game. But I think the fact that if he's there around the changing room on the final day, or they see him in the stand, that's going to maybe impact some of their performances, to leave a marker on him at the end of the season to say, hey, I want to be around next season. I want to be a part of your rebuild. So I'm intrigued, right, to see how this Man United squad reacts to having Erik ten Hag, watching them in person for the first time.
I could just see the text going back and forth. Going to start Elanga over Sancho and Rashford. LOL, what? Like, this is like one of those things where I that would be something special. Maybe the poop emoji or something, going back and forth between these two very stoic, serious people. I think we can tell a little bit about who actually gives what about Man United, about how they perform in this game. I mean, I really think you do. If you are of the sort of camps that we've heard about, that are about themselves and not that serious, the only people we know who aren't in those camps are like David De Gea. If that's the case, that there's this real mixed up sort of hound's breakfast, if you will, of a dressing room, then honestly, I think this game can tell us a bit over who really does want to impress and who is ready to get the heck out of there.
It's very true. I'm really looking forward to seeing that, and just how things go at Manchester United over the summer, because I think we're going to see a lot of big changes and a lot of ins and a lot of outs, because there's no way Erik ten Hag would take that job unless he's been promised a lot of money. Andy, you want to jump in there quick on United? Yeah, when they play on Sunday, United won't have played a game for 20 days. That's really weird in the season, especially at the tail end of the season. They didn't have any rearranged fixtures. And so as all these games were getting made up, I think they also played early because they had an FA Cup final opponent in there. And so that factored in. So 20 days. And by the way, the last time they took the field, they lost 4-0
to Brighton. And so that's the last taste that's left in their mouth. Either, they're going to come out and they're going to say, well, we have to really give a better account of ourselves, or they're going to say, these last 20 days have been kind of nice. We haven't had to play. We haven't been beaten. We haven't been, hammered in front of the entire world and had everybody talking down on us. I kind of wish we could go back to not playing.
It's going to be intriguing because Palace obviously had less than 3 days since their last game ahead of this one. So a bit of a difference there in terms of rest and recovery time. So let's see what Erik ten Hag sees in front of him. And I think that's going to be really intriguing looking ahead to the future. Talking about intriguing, goodbye waves on the final day. I swear there's a cameraman at every stadium on the final day who is just solely looking at the players and their reaction on the farewell laps or going away to the away fans. I mean, Nick, who are we looking at in terms of goodbye waves and whether we can read too much into that? Because it's always interesting, isn't it, this time of the year? Last home game, last away game, last game of the season. And you look at players and how they react to the fans, whether they're singing their names or the waves goodbye, a tearful goodbye. Declan Rice, Gabriel Jesus, maybe Sadio Mane, Mo Salah. There's some big names there that we could be seeing moving on from their clubs that they've been at for a very long time. Any players amongst that group that we think could be waving goodbye this weekend?
Yeah, I'll be watching Liverpool the most closely for this, especially because we will have to see what they are waving goodbye to, right? There's a chance that they're celebrating a title. And so will that make it all the more emotional? But at the same time, when I look at this group with respect to the names you mentioned, and I know some of them are young, and so the emotions can be a little thicker. Mane and Salah, to me, are most embedded in the fabric of their clubs. And so if you're going to be able to get an actual read on it, maybe you will from them. And then on the other hand, what pops into my head, they've still got a Champions League final to play. So maybe there are other waves to take a look at, although, of course, this will be at Anfield.
Yeah, it could be their final game at Anfield, right, if they do leave this summer. So that's what I kind of got my eye on with those two. But, yeah, it's going to be really intriguing. Andy, Lukaku, Pulisic at Chelsea, maybe Yuri Tielemans at Leicester. All eyes will be on those guys as well. They'll be at home on the final day. Do you see potential wave goodbyes for them? Should there be potential waves goodbye for those players we mentioned?
I think there's a strong case for all three of them to move on somewhere else in the summer. Lukaku obviously, tricked us all. Again, Chelsea did, bringing him in, thinking, okay, they've got the perfect team. They needed the striker. You add him in, it just has not worked, I think, tactically. And he said it himself. I think Tuchel has said it himself as well. It just doesn't seem to fit. Pulisic, we've talked about all season long. Yuri Tielemans feels like he's ready to make a jump up to a Champions League type club. And Manchester United, I think, would be very, very smart if you want a good two-way midfielder, but somebody who skews a little bit more towards playmaking, but does defensive responsibilities, unlike a lot of the players that they've had in the midfield in recent years. I think he would be an absolutely perfect fit. You don't have Champions League, of course, but I think he's the type of player that fills such a need in that team that he could elevate them and have them in the top four conversation last season. And as Nick was talking there about Liverpool having the Champions League final, and so maybe this is not it, I was thinking about Harry Kane, because a year ago right now, he was doing that interview on the golf course with Gary Neville, and there was this uncertainty, and the last couple of games were a little bit awkward. And I'm thinking, oh, well, if he's sick, he can't play, he can't wave goodbye, he can't leave. And so Harry Kane, book it, another season at Tottenham next year.
That is the logic of a diehard Tottenham fan right there, Andy. Fair play to you, mate. Staying positive on Harry Kane being there forever and scoring goals forever in a Tottenham Hotspur shirt. Okay, let's finish with the fifth and final under-the-radar story. Kind of a combined awards one to look out for. Mohamed Salah and Trent Alexander-Arnold are locked in the battle to win the assist award, the Playmaker Award. Salah's on 13 assists for the season. Trent's on 12. Nick already thinks Mason Mount's going to win it. And then the other award is Ederson and Alisson are both on 20 clean sheets in the Golden Glove race. So quickly, Nick, who do we think is going to win the Assist Playmaking Award and the Golden Glove Award?
Oh, boy. Let's go with Trent for the assists, just because we don't know if Salah's going to play, and I know Liverpool's going to score. And I will actually go with Ederson here. Even with everything we've said in the entire show, top to bottom, there's part of me right now that's saying Man City is just going to kind of stroll through this.
What do you think, mate?
I think Salah will hold on to it. And after last season, for the first first time we had Harry Kane lead the Golden Boot and the assist title as well in the same season. I think we're going to see it in back-to-back seasons. Salah will hold on to both of those. Maybe Trent ties him on 13, but he'll get a share of that crown. And I do think Ederson makes the most sense. Manchester City, given some of the struggles they've had going forward this season, given defensive injuries, maybe play a little bit more, not a safer game, but a little bit more reserved and even more in control than they typically are. That's how this team keeps clean sheets. It's not by having brilliant world-class defenders, which they do. It's by not asking them to defend more than 4 or 5 times in a game.
I think that Salah's probably going to hold on to it for some reason. I think Liverpool might be a bit more defensive. I'm not even sure. Trent will probably play, I would assume, but maybe Klopp won't want to risk him. And I actually think they're going to share it. I think City and Liverpool will both concede this weekend. So I think Alisson and Ederson are going to share the Golden Glove. And I think that's pretty fit in the 2 Brazilian internationals. I really think there's very little between the 2 of them as goalkeepers. Alisson's probably got more plaudits in recent years, and perhaps rightly so in the bigger games. He's stood tall for Liverpool, but I still think they're both quality goalkeepers, and be pretty fair for them to shake hands with the Golden Glove on each hand. I'm pretty sure you can wear it, right, as a trophy at the end of the season, and they could both be very, very proud of the season they've had in goal for their respective teams. So, gents, we're very proud of previewing everything throughout the season. One final time, Championship Sunday is upon us. Head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com for all the latest news around the final 10 games of the Premier League season. Cannot believe we're there, but we are nearly done with the campaign, lads. Looking forward to joining you both next week on Monday for our awards show, end of season awards. We'll wrap up everything that happened on Championship Sunday. It's going to be a fun one. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Thanks, guys, for joining me. And we'll speak to you all very soon indeed. Cheers, guys.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series, and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches, and much more.